I'm going to map out my scene. It's this one. I'll put some black on my palette, and we'll just start using a very watered down brush. I like to put a lot of water on it just at the beginning and just use this like a pen or a pencil. So here on my canvas, I want to have a I want to have a little child. Here's a ball cap right here, and here's a head looking away from me. Let's put a couple little ears on there. Hey, this could be like an art style in itself. There's the neck, and let's put a few dart here. Let's make it a backwards ball cap. There we go. What do you think, backwards or forward ball cap? I wasn't sure which one would be the best, but I think
I
backwards would be
prefer
cool.
I prefer a backward ball cap when I paint.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Better
that's cool.
vision.
I always put my ball cap backwards when I was on the paint crew because it uh, shaded my neck from getting burned. Okay, now I'm going to put a shoulder coming up like this. Now, when I'm doing human form, I'm just going to talk through it to get whatever value. This isn't supposed to be a whole lesson on human form, but whatever value can come of it. So I'm doing wrinkles in the shirt. And human form, I'm always imagining my torso out of two sections. We have a section. We have a section here. I'll do a quick a whiteboard drawing so I don't have to totally destroy my canvas drawing to show what I'm talking about. When I do human form, torso, I always think of as two blocks like so, and the person might be wide, the person might be narrow. It's just whatever, trial and error to get to the ones I like. Okay, now off of that, I have my person twisting. So just through a rock. So that means I'm going to see the top of the shoulders more square, the bottom going to rotate this way. So that just means it's going to get a little bit thinner because this is turning a little more sideways, right? So now let's put a leg. Now there's a length to the leg. It goes up to the armpit, and this is going to be shoulder on this corner. This is going to be armpit. So the leg is going to come down like this, and to the knee is going to be that distance right there. So this, I can put my twisting wrinkles. If a person is twisting, if the top is going this direction and the bottom's going this direction, just imagine a rope, right? The clothing is going to do a similar thing, right? Imagine a rope. This rope, the top is twisted this direction, the bottom twisted this direction. Well, the clothing is going to do that similar thing. So as I'm putting these shapes in, I'll put wrinkles that are, for the most part, oriented this way because I want the feeling of the body twisting. So then here's some pants. I'm just doing like a little impression of wrinkles. The length of that leg really matters, because this is a real basic human proportion. That's a back pant pocket right there. Now here's the far leg right here. I can experiment with different places. Prioritize the parts. If you get the right length and width of parts, then you might be surprised at how a human form comes together in a lot of different posture options. Okay, so now I've got the upper leg. Here is the lower leg. There's wrinkles on the pants, make the knee kind of bent like this, and put a shoe right here. In the lower leg, I'm making similar in length to the upper leg. No, nothing too complicated, just similar in length, including the foot down to the bottom of the heel. So here's the shoe like that. And then this is starting to look like a lanky teenager at the moment. So I might want to make the width more to make it a smaller child, but we'll see. It's just a whiteboard demo of parts. Okay, there's the bottom of the far leg. I zigzagged it to make the impression of some clothing wrinkles. I'll make that foot a little higher so that it looks further. Just adding perspective. Here's another pant pocket, and I've oriented them to the left. See how they're a little bit left so that my person has a butt right there. And then I'm going to put a shirt, and we're going to put wrinkles just like this. I'm going to put the shirt wrinkles going, this is the shoulder of the shirt. We're going to attach arms right here. So let's put a sleeve hanging over there. It's pulling up tight. The arm raises, kind of pulls that shirt tight like this. And these are things I learned from doing studies, like drawing clothing in different, so it's familiar position. And if I just do this, if I sit this direction, raise my arm and go like this, you can see the wrinkles across my shoulder doing this very thing. They're going to go like that. They're just going to go like that. See, I get that twisting motion that way. Okay, so I'm going to paint this character in my picture. Here is the shirt coming down, and then I'm just going to kind of fake a few little wrinkles at the bottom of the shirt like this. I'm going to put another arm coming down this way. This one, it's relaxed, so I'm not going to put a whole ton of wrinkles right there. One arm up, one arm down. The shoulder comes up higher than, it comes up next to the neck. All right, the length of this arm is, the elbow comes right to the middle of those two sections. If I draw those two original sections again, this narrow spot right here is very convenient for letting your arm pass back and forth while you walk or run. It lets that widest part of your arm, the elbow, pass back and forth without bumping. And that's how I remember it, is that it has a really handy dandy purpose. It allows very fluid movement. So see, I can make a natural looking human form very quickly. And now because of that narrower waist and the wider hips, it's starting to look like a female form, especially if I go like this. See, I can do a form of a woman real quick as opposed to the one I'm working on. But these parts and their places, it's not a terribly difficult thing to remember, and I find exceptionally helpful to remember that. So I'm basically just building the whole character off of this starting point. And I'm not the inventor of that. Clever people have come up with that before my time. Okay, so now we're going to put a neck and head up here like this. And I'm just kind of tilting it, putting the back of the hat right there. There we go. And I made the head nice and big, so it looks like a very young person. Let's put some hair, put an ear right there. Let's put the arm. Now, to make it in perspective, I'm going to shorten the arm. It would have come down only about to there, the elbow. And so now I'm going to really shorten it. Also, an elbow, if someone has their arm raised up, I always remember that the elbow goes about to the top of the head on an adult like this. Easy thing to remember. Goes up. So I'm going to shorten it from that ratio to make it look like it's going away from me. So foreshortening. So we're going to make it get smaller and shorter. We're going to put the second part of the arm just little curved lines, because if we can convince the imagination that it is in perspective, then we can get away with just little dots for lines. The imagination will do the rest. Let's put a thumb right here. Let's put fingers right here. Chunk, chunk. There, you see, it's reaching away. It just released a big rock. The rock is flying. Then we're going to put an arm down here, kind of swinging out the other way for balance, like this. This is my form. I'm going to do a real impressionistic version of it. Now I'm making the body a little wider so it doesn't look like a lanky teenager. I'm thinking, a little child similar to myself when I was about 10 years old, just out looking for things to do in nature. Okay, I'm going to put that to the side and paint it. So down here, I've got the same thing. I'll zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to put the camera where you can see my picture. Tell me if I need to zoom in any further. Now I'm back to my black paint.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. Sleeve right there. Okay. Shirt right here. Here's the other sleeve. This feels like an art style in itself, these drawings. I like the feel of this watered down paint, and just freely draw. It's just because I love drawing so much. All right, there's a hand reaching that way. That's the one going this way. And so now we're going to put the arm going this way, like so. And this one's going to come this way. Same thing I just drew. Make this arm shorter, and then make it going this way. Make a hand up here where we mostly just see knuckles, maybe little nubs for fingers because they're reaching out that way. The shirt twists this way, like that. And
Is it-
we have,
Is this going to be a real athletic little guy?
I don't know. What do you think? I think it might be fun to put a little bit of chub on his bones. What do you think?
No, I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking if this little guy really knows how to throw to get distance on a rock, his
Uh-huh.
left foot would be
Uh-huh.
forward.
His left foot. Yeah, we need to do that. Okay. So let's make sure we put the right foot toward me then. So let's go like this. Let's put the hips rotated this way. We're gonna come down this way. Make sure we get the length of that up to the armpit. And let's go down here. This foot's gonna be right here. This one is gonna be here. Now, the higher I put that, the
Yeah.
more spread apart those legs will be. So we'll put, if you're viewing this from a distance, the optimum viewing distance of this painting, like if you're standing just a arm's length away, it'll feel real good to have extreme foreshortening. But if you're looking at this from across a room from far away, it might feel real fisheye, like like the foreshortening might feel too extreme. So I think about that. It's just a side note, something I think about when I'm painting a picture, is how extreme to make the foreshortening. Basically, how close do I want it to feel like I'm standing to this boy? And that distance I want to feel will be in harmony with the optimum distance from the canvas I want it to be looked at. They'll kind of harmonize that way. Okay.
I hear the words. I just don't think that I know why it makes that much difference by how far the viewer is from the painting.
Well, it's this. This is the reason, because when you look at tiny thumbnails, right, when you look at tiny thumbnails or you look at people's selfies, and sometimes you can really see ridiculous size change. Looking at the extremes helps to understand it. Like in that camera, my left hand here is so much smaller than this. And if you feel like you're up close to me, it feels natural. But if you take this exact same image and you look at it from a distance, or you shrink it down to a real small space, all of a sudden it looks real extreme. Like why is his left hand so extremely tiny?
Got it.
So when you're looking at the image from something similar that it was actually taken, then it just tends to feel more natural. That's all.
Right. That was a good demo with the hands.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's this arm here is bothering me. This one, it's got this weird kind of form to it, and I think it's just because it's lines. Actually, I think so. I made this one long and this one short. I need to reverse that. This one needs to be the longer. Yeah, that's what it is. Because this comes down, this bends forward. So the forearm needs to be shorter than the upper arm. I'm just now realizing that. That was just a small, yeah, that's going to look way better. Seeing more of the back of the upper arm. This is the tricep area right there. Okay, that's it. That's going to be my character. I'm going to make him standing by some kind of a body of water, except now I put him down low in the picture, and now I don't have the space to do. I wanted to do a reflection of my kid in this picture. I wanted to do a reflection down here, and I just put him at the bottom of the picture. So what am I going to do about that? We're going to have to move it up.
I don't know.
We're going to have to move it up. That's it. All right, we'll give it a chance, see if there's something else that can be done. I'm going to have an opposite bank over here. There's going to be some trees, some dark shadows. I want, this is like somewhere a lot greener than where I live, and there's some deep shadows and vegetation over here, overgrowing the creek. My oldest brother, James, lives in this beautiful spot on the Verde River.
Oh.
And that's closer to where you live than where I live. And he has a spot like this, where there's the shadow of the trees overhanging they can go down every day. They just go down and swim in that river. It's the most beautiful spot. they really scored a great property there. Okay.
Yeah, it's a
So
beautiful river.
it is. It's cool. You know, for the south, it's a very southwest feel. You know, it's not the same feel when you go to a river there as when you go to a river in the Midwest somewhere with a whole bunch, because it's otherwise such extreme hot, dry territory. So then it gives it a whole different feel when you're suddenly by water. It's just has more magic to it, really. You know, it's like this oasis kind of feel when you go from that hot desert down to a cool flowing creek. So what I was doing here is just doing some negative space shadows in there to eventually become little tree trunks that are kind of hidden back in here. Just something to get my imagination going, that's all. Then the water is going to come out here like this. And so we'll do that. I really like this. This drawing looks great, but it only took me a little bit to do it. So we're going to rearrange it. I decided I really liked my sketch where I had room to put reflection in there. So we're going to redo this whole thing. Here's the hat. Here's the head. Here's the neck. Here's the arm. Here's the top of the arm. Here's the hand, the fingers. Here's the shirt. Here's the second arm right here. Here is the legs. We're going to just bump the whole thing up like this. I'll make it a little bit darker so that there's room like this. And we'll just make it a younger looking, stubbier body parts to be a younger child right here. Now we're really pushing the limits of who should be allowed to go out throwing rocks unsupervised. There we go. More like that. More. What a messy sketch. How is this going to be anything? Okay, so now I've got room to put a little bit of reflection down there in the water. And then I'm going to put a bank kind of coming out here. Okay, let's get started. Let's have some fun painting this picture. I think for starters, I'm going to do a very rough version of my kid first. And I'm imagining a red shirt. And so we'll start with that. Maybe, what if we did like Waldo, red and white? No, let's just do a red shirt. Let's do a red shirt. Now, when you're doing bright colored clothing, it's important to think about how dark it needs to be to preserve the brilliance of the color. If I just start adding a bunch of white, this is not going to look like a bright red. So I'm going to take this red and I'm going to put my shirt in place. I'll put a little white. I can afford to put some white, but I got to be careful how much. A good protocol to follow when you're lightening red is to add little bits of orange as you're lightening it, because orange is usually the red shifts a little bit toward orange as it gets brighter, just as a general rule, not like real sciencey explanation or anything, just a general rule. So I put orange. Orange is able to get lighter while having intensity than red can. So I can get lighter highlights, maintaining brightness of color by including some orange. So I'm going to take this orange and use that alongside of white right here and use this to highlight my red. Okay, so let's go up here and put those diagonal wrinkles in there. And so we'll just put some diagonal lines like this. This is my red. I might have to do a couple coats. When you know you're going to have to do a couple coats, it's good to do a first coat with lots of white here. Let's do this first.
Okay, Joe.
Begins.
We got a question here from Tanja.
Okay, good.
And she says, Joe, how do you know or measure how big a figure should be when you put it in a painting so it looks a natural size, not too big, not too small? Is there any rule to follow?
I don't think there's a rule. I think it's entirely based on the kind of composition that you want to have, and that is done with experiment. So I would say it's more valuable to do a perspective that is in harmony with the size. You know, it might look weird if I do a far away perspective has very little foreshortening, what we just talked about. So the difference between his far foot and his close foot, they're going to be almost exact same height if the boy is way up here by the horizon in the distance. Everything will be equals, no size changes. Like the hands will be the same size as each other, the feet will be the same height. There won't be foreshortening. Now, if I put a real big character up in the front, but then I do that far away perspective where things are very equal size. Like I was saying earlier, that picture might look good way across the room, but look kind of flat when you're close to it. So more important to do perspective that is in harmony with your chosen size. But I cannot tell you a good size because I think anything goes. I think your idea is good.
So isn't this like why you did like a rough draft and just put it in to like get the perspective, and then you realize like, oh brother, it's too close to the bottom.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so that all is measuring it against your vision. You know what vision? So that's just like I have a vision for this picture, and I want the picture to be about the scenery, and I want the viewer to feel. So that's another good aspect of that, and perhaps this is more what Tanja is bringing up, is what is the painting? I would describe it as what is the painting about? That's really what we're deciding, is what is this about? If I make this child take up half of the canvas, real big, it could be a really good picture of a child in the mood captured by the body positioning, but I might lose the priority on the scenery. It might not feel as much like it's about where the child is, the environment. So I want to examine what is my picture about. Now, I personally want this picture to feel like this little 10-year-old boy is bored. So I'm just adding story to it. Is bored. So he goes out and starts playing by some river and throwing rocks. And then I want the viewer to imagine what it's like to be there at that river. So if I make the child real big, it's all about the boy and not as much about that river. But if I shrink it down until I really feel like I want to look at this river, that's how I came to the decision on the size. It's what I want to prioritize in my picture, what it's about.
So one way to prioritize is just the size of what it is you want to emphasize.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely the size. And so that might be where you're deciding how close you are. Are you zoomed out from the whole scene and everything's kind of equal? Are you way up? Do I want to feel like I'm the best friend standing right next to the boy and we're both throwing rocks, and then I get a more intimate feel, So I'm just thinking through the emotion. If I had a camera in my hand and I was there that day that it happened, would I want to stand back when I took the picture? Would I want to just snap a close-up picture? What would I want to capture? Those are questions I ask. So, I think photography and painting overlap a lot in that way.
Right.
So here I'm doing the same, just kind of general sloped wrinkles to do some jeans. I want to do the look of some jeans here. And, there's a real specific wrinkle pattern that happens on jeans where you kind of have triangle wrinkles here and there, like so I just, when I'm not trying to make them twisting a certain way, I'll just kind of make little triangles coming in from the edges. See, I just made little zigzag lines, triangles, and that gives me
like those are little wrinkles.
Yeah, like if I were to zoom in here, let's go over here where I'm going to paint over it. So a wrinkle on the back of a leg or on the front of a shin, wherever it is, the fabric relaxes. So same thing happens if you crinkle up paper. So this is a downward facing edge. Now here's an upward facing edge. I won't color it. And so then there's sides. See how I made a view of a pyramid? Fabric does this same thing. So then over here, we can have, we might have this pattern. So there's a pattern of triangles is all I'm saying. So as a quick strategy to making believable wrinkles, I will make zigzags that have triangular shape to them. So, I'll make a wrinkle that comes in like here. Let's go down below the knee and go to some of the fabric that I want to look relaxed. Zigzag like this. Okay. See, I just made a zigzag right there.
Right.
And so this makes a high spot on the fabric, and then I'm going to make this lighter. This top half of this one, make a little triangle right there. I'm going to make a little triangle right here. I'll make a little triangle. So everywhere my line swooped sideways, I kind of did a highlight like that. It's just a pattern, just a pattern that might be fun to use. See, and then I get a real quick impression of some wrinkles that way. So these are the dark is like the downward facing triangles, and the light is like the upward facing triangles. There might be an upward one here, and of course wrinkle, it gets all distorted. That was just to give a geometric illustration of how things often can be like made of triangular shapes.
Sure,
So I use that when
I'm
trying to quick form triangles.
I think it's almost worth a study, like taking a picture of and then studying the wrinkles on them.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've done that so much. I don't just think my way through wrinkles. I'm constantly referencing wrinkle patterns that I've observed. So if you really want to improve your ability to do wrinkles from imagination, fabric wrinkles, then doing those studies, like you said, I think is super, super valuable.
Right. I think Tanya has a nice comment here. She says, quite complex, a mix out of knowledge of perspective and logics, instinct, painting ability, and composition.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, when you say it that way, gosh, man, you could really make someone feel intimidated out of attempting it. You're right. You're right. It is. You're right. It is. It is a combination of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Mary has a question. She says, Joe, would his back foot be bent at the toes, showing that leg is raised up a bit since he is actively throwing?
Yeah, right. So like down here, so I want to show the heel. Yeah, that's a good observation. So I'm just going to put a little more shadow. I'm going to leave this dark shadow under that foot so that it looks raised up. So that when I come down in here and I do, let's do some muddy ground real quick. Let's do some kind of ground in here to observe it. So that it's going to be darker right up under this foot like that. And then that is going to give me the feel. So if I make my ground lighter, I'm doing little highlights on the ground. Now it's going to snug right up against the toe. See, the toe is right there. Now see how that shadow on the back, even though it's so messy, it's such a abstract, messy job, that shadow on the back of the foot will convey that exact thing, like the leaning forward, like this foot is raised. But I think a little bit does it. The more accurate I get with my edges, then the more it'll look like that exact thing. So now I'll take a little teensy bit of this black and I'll put a lighter shadow under that heel right here, like this. Now I haven't decided which direction the light is coming on this. So maybe we'll just kind of make a general, maybe the light, I don't know why, but I kind of feel like it should come this way. So I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna put a dark general shadow going that way, just to map it out. And then I'm gonna lighten that shoe here. Let's give him a little bit of white on his tennis shoe. So we'll go like this, highlight the top, and then I'm bringing, this is actually a gray because it's mixed with the other colors in my brush. Goes right down to the ground in the front, but then as it comes up here, I'm gonna make it have more shadow under it for that exact reason, so that it looks like a raised up foot. Right. Now, as I get into the details of my picture, hopefully that comes together more. Right now, it's relying a lot on imagination. But sometimes imagination does the best job if enough of the picture tells the same story. Okay, I'm gonna do like you said. I'm gonna put the stance a little more wide and put that foot way up. And I'm gonna make sure that I have a good amount of. I'm gonna make sure. What am I trying to say? Distance in the stance. I want that sense of motion. I want to have a wide stance, like the boy just really, really threw a rock. And you were saying maybe he's like on the athletic side, so we'll really make it. Okay, here's those wrinkles like this. Let's put a couple triangles, just doing the zigzags in there to get that feel. I want the light coming from this side, so it's okay to light up that side. So this could be a dark shadow. This is the crotch of the pants right here. So I'm going to darken this spot. I'm going to make sure that I get my 3D stance by keeping that spot darker. There we go. And then as I develop the picture, hopefully that'll come together more and more. I've got some messy edges, but I just do what I know. I do what I'm confident of, and then it helps me to visualize the things that I'm less confident about. It
like what would that be in this? What would that be in this case?
Yeah, I'm not real confident about the outer edges of each leg, but as I develop the landscape, the rocks, I'll feel more confident about where I need to cut those edges. So here I'm doing them rough and planning on coming back and making a more final decision later about exactly where I want to see the edges of the legs. I could muscle through it right now, but I just feel like I don't need to. I can just focus on developing the picture, and then that'll come together for me. Okay, so I'm putting more of those little triangles in place on the jeans. I've got a darker color right here. Here's a downward facing triangle. Here's another one going this way, like that. You can do another darker one. You know how your jeans bunch up around your shoes? So we'll do wrinkles coming in from the sides. They always kind of offset, like zigzag, coming in from the left, coming in from the right, like this, like that. So if I think about remember we did that whole study on valleys and ridges? This is the same, this is that. Look at it, valleys and ridges and how they're interconnected. So right here, I've got, I'm not sure what to do with that one right there. Let's just leave that alone for a little bit and decide later. They're looking like nice baggy pants at the moment. I think I'm gonna make this brighter. Here's the back of the jeans. Make them nice and bright, like the light is hitting back there. Yeah, there we go. Like this. Then we'll do this, put more light. There we go. We don't need wrinkles everywhere. We just need enough to make it believable. Okay. Then I'm going to go to the skin tone. So this is where it's handy for me to get into my premixes. When I want to do those arms real quick, like these 3 colors are going to work great. So this is going to be my mid-tone. I'll put that on first. And let's go up here and put an arm reaching out. Now that's a real dark shade, but I'm going to put this real light one on it. So we're going to put the light coming this way. So we'll put a brighter color right here, brighter color right here, like that. And I think that this is mixed for a much darker skinned. This is a darker picture, so I'm going to need a bright color, and I just so happen to have one. I've got a pre-mixed light color right here that I was using for the clothing. Same thing. It's the orange, black, white, and a little yellow. It's those 4 colors. No red in any of these. And I can make all the different tones I need for skin with those primaries. Just in case you wonder, what these colors are made of. I don't too often start right out with pre-mixed colors. So here's my lightest, brightest color. And it really helps this to look like skin when we can see the color in those shadows, you know. So I'm going to go like this, make the bottom of the arm. There we go. Color in the shadows. And then we'll put the back of the hand up here like this. And let's make it a little bit wider. Well, we're going to come in and destroy these edges when we're painting backgrounds. So we don't want to get too carried away. Let's just do an impression right now, and that'll be enough. Okay, back of the hand, we got fingers reaching up like this, and we better make those light because they're facing up. So we'll get my light color and really highlight these because that's an upward facing, you know, the hand is like this, and so I want light coming from on top. Just thinking through it. Okay, so that's going to be the fingers catching the sunlight. Here's a thumb catching the sunlight. There we go. Now we've got a little more of a 3D lighting. We'll put a shadow on the back of the head, and I've got a good pre-mixed color for that, a very dark brown. Let's look. I've got all these pre-mixes from the painting I've been working on. Here's my next stage of dark brown. I can use that anywhere I need shadow on hair and body. It's real good to have a dark brown. So I'm going to bring that ball cap down all the way to here and put dark hair right in there. And then I'm going to put light skin tone next to that. So we're going to go like this, start lightening up. This is a mid-tone. Now I'm going to put a lighter color on top of that.
You know,
Okay, now I'm going to go to
painting the hair on the back of his head, for me, made all the difference in perspective because now it's so easy to visualize him looking away. Before, it was like I had to fight not having him look straight at you.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's a good point. Yeah. Here's a shadow I'm putting on the, or a highlight I'm putting where the sun is coming in, the ball cap is blocking it, makes a diagonal line like. So this is going to be the bright back of the neck right there. And a little bit of extra color is always nice where you have bright sun. You get a good effect if you put a little color where it goes to shadow. That really makes it look like sunlit skin tone is getting good color on the edge of that shadow. Make sure. So there's that was my reddest mid-tone right here. Well, these are both very red, but I put this one in there. Okay, so then we'll go up here and do the left arm. Let's go in here and put this arm coming down like this. And then we'll put the this is the next level up. This is my lighter color, but not my lightest color. And then it was, I went from this one, then to this one. Now I'm going to this one. Now we go like that, sunlight hitting that arm. Yeah, there we go, nice and bright. Then I'll just kind of blend them together. I'm going to make the, go ahead.
We're talking about direction of lighting. Tanja has a question. I'm a little bit confused about the light direction. The back of the shirt seems to be lightened from behind and right, while your general light comes from left above. Yeah, right. Left above is what I'm shooting for. And you are right. We have equal light here. So this, we really would want to correct this. So this with red, it's a real balance of values. So I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to brighten this, but remember, I have to work as dark as possible to get a vivid red. I have to make sure I don't work too light because I lose the vivid red. So as soon as I put this arm in, I'm going to do exactly what you're talking about and try to get the brightest light. See, I don't think of light and shadow is not a binary subject. You know what I mean? For me, it's how much light and how much shadow on each spot, because I still have the big bright sky shining on the top of every surface. So the direct sunlight is going to be the most dominant light, and
And because I cannot represent that level of contrast with my paint, I have to lower the contrast altogether in my picture.
Well, I mean, plus you really have a challenge here, Joe, because we are all sitting here watching you paint in the midst of creating something.
I know, but this is what I love. Thank you. Thank you, Mavis. Okay. Well, and this is how, the thing that I want to convey is working tools, working systems. I have enjoyed having natural talent that I think is very debatable why it exists, because it could be the result of just focusing on one thing. You use your brain for the same thing all your life. I would guess you're bound to really develop ability in that subject. And I think I've just spent a huge long time doing that. But, at the same time, I would also argue that we're born with what we have a capacity to focus on. Like I would have been tortured to focus on something different. So I do enjoy the talent, is what I'm trying to say. But I think that there's so much to be said for good working tools and coherent answers of why things cause effects. This is why I love painting live, because it's time to prove the tools. And that's the point I'm trying to get to. I just want to prove that there are some working tools here. So I'm going to make unless anybody disagrees, I'm going to make a blue ball cap on this boy. And so I'm going to reflect light off of a blue, which means I'm going to make it a little bit, as a general rule, when blue light mixes with other light, it gets more purple than the paint would have it. So I'm going to do a blue hat. I'm going to mix extra amounts. I could use red or I could use purple. I don't know which one. Let's just use purple. As I put the sunlight hitting the top of the hat, I'm going to make it not just a lighter blue, but also purple. So let's go up and do the hat real quick. We'll add a touch of white, just a little bit. Man, that blue gets so intense when you add a small amount of white. It really is a bright color, or intense color, rather. I'm going to shrink the size of the hat. So here is the hat, right here. We're going to go up like this. Okay. And then I'm going to put the sunlight hitting it. So this color, if I wanted to make it a blue wave with light shining through it, I would not add the purple. I want light bouncing off of the surface, like skylight, like just, it's a reflected, a surface illuminating the surface without creating a translucent, like light shining through it. So this is why the purple. Now we go up here, and this color is going to work well to get the light. I'm going to make it even lighter. I'm adding more white to it. Same color, more white. Right there on the bill, like this. You see, because that color is not turquoise, it has more of a surface feel to it, not like light coming from in the middle of something. So now my child has a blue hat. Now I'm going to dull down the blue of the hat. It's a little bit on the intense side. So let's take the.
So Joe, I'm not real clear about your point about the turquoise light. Can't you have a turquoise hat?
Yes, but whatever color it is, if I want to put light looking like it's reflecting off the very surface and not illuminating from the inside like an icicle or a wave, then I shift my highlight a little toward the purple. But if I want it to look like this boy is a strange creature with a big crystal coming out of his brain, if I want that to look like a solid crystal, I use the turquoise color. I shift it toward the yellow. See, watch how weird it'll look. I'm going to do it just for giggles. We're just going to shift the other way. Let's take phthalo green and put this on here. So we went toward purple for the light bouncing off the surface. This is what we did with the chunks of ice. I'm going to do the same thing. So here's my blue. shifting it toward turquoise. And I'm going to make sure that it's not extremely bright. We're going to make light coming from inside. And now this is going to be like a glowing crystal head. You know, we're going to put light coming from inside. Now let's shift it toward the green more. Right there. You see how that goes deep into it? See how that light comes out of the inside of it? And no longer do I have that round ball cap look with the light on this side. It interferes with that. And it looks, this is the effect I would want to use if I'm making a wave or something with light coming from inside of it. So we can control whether
so it looks
light,
like his head is glowing.
yeah, exactly. It looks like a translucent glow. It looks like he's got a green brain and it's shining through the hat or something. It's an odd look for a ball cap. Okay, I don't know how well it translates on the computer. Yeah, well, that's it. You know, I feel like I talk about it nonstop, that whether we're making light come from beyond the surface or just off the very surface. So in this one, I don't want the glowing from within look, so purple is going to kill that. Let's put purple on it. No more green. Like that. There we go. Purple will kill the green. So now I'm just at a dark kind of blue, and it looks more like a solid object. And then I just add white to it. No shifting of the color, just add white. And if it looked green, I might add more purple, but now that mix has purple, I think I can just add white. There we go. See,
So
there it goes.
Tanja thinks she got rid of Alien Boy.
Got rid of anyway. That's it. Okay, so there's the hat. Let's put a little ear. Might be fun here. Let's do a dark shadow on the ear right there. And let's put a darker shadow still right behind it. We're going to see the ear and the hair coming down right there. Very rough impression, but we got to have some kind of a little ear on this child. Now let's put a little bit coming up above the hat right there. There we go. We're relying a lot on imagination. And then we can even put a little bit of purple reflection on the side of the face. So this is fun. Whenever I have skin tone, adding a little bit, I already mixed this purple, I'll use that. Here's this mid-tone. I'm going to mix a purplish gray. Oh, I got a lot of turquoise in there. Let's get more purple. Okay, purplish gray. This is a real fun color to put on the edges, like of the face. We can just put it right here. A surface that I really want to be sideways, going away from me. This will immediately cause a reflective look. So the side of the neck, I can do right there. I can do the edge of the arm, especially since there's water that's probably bouncing a lot of light in this picture. So I can just preload my skin tone with the little bits of reflection. Okay, there we go. We got a boy throwing a rock. Now it's time to put in some background. We started right out. I'm going to get a bigger brush. Started right out with the foreground, Adam. That's kind of a funny way to do a picture like this. Okay, now I don't know what color to make the water. I'm not sure what we should do there. Let's move these things. I want it to look like I'm thinking muddy. I'm thinking Mudville. And so what I'll do is I'll get my cream mixes. These are nice for skin tone, but I'm going to work from primaries to throw together the rest of the landscape. Let's move those out of the way. And then we'll grab some black and start doing this water. Okay. So I want nice dark colors here. And, you know, normally I would lean toward like a bluish, greenish. I'm just going to make brown water. I'm just going to make brown, muddy water in here. Like this. It's going to come up and get brighter as it gets out from under these shadows. I'll add some white because that is an extremely dark color to put in the distance. I don't think I want pure black shadows just yet. I better save those for areas like this. you know, small shadowed spaces in the foreground, that's a good place for black, but probably not for my distant shadows where bushes are. Now, water doesn't have to be any particular color. You can make it any color you like. What we need are some gradients. We want gradients to represent the reflective surface. And so that's what I'm going to be working on with this water, is just getting the gradients in place. This gradient is just trying to go up into the shadows. So I'm just thinking about one thing at a time, just making a muddy color that gets darker as it goes up under these trees, like that. Okay, then the water starts getting illuminated right here, and I've got a big splash in the middle of it. Right there, we've got reflection of some things back there. It's probably not going to be black. Let's make it some shade of gray for now. We'll adjust it later when I get a background. For now, a gray will give me the feel that I'm after. Just a middle of the road gray, something I know that I can get plenty darker or plenty lighter if I need to. That's going to be reflection on my stream right here. Let's cut it in. We can always redo those edges, so I won't be too careful. Like that. Let's get a little more white. I feel like that could be lighter still. So this is where I can start doing little bits of ripples. Go ahead.
So you don't have any particular body of water in mind, like you mentioned the Verde River earlier, so you don't.
Well, I guess maybe my imagination is kind of going to that kind of a color, because it is very brown. Verde River is very brown.
Right.
And I don't often paint just a brown body of water, so I think that'll be fun. Just putting a little boy playing in the mud. So I'm going to put gray reflection. Blue on brown would be gray, you know, like if you had, or it'd be more of a purpley gray. But you can see this is starting to resemble, because of this gradient going from a brown just to that light tone of gray. That gradient all by itself starts to resemble reflection on water. I just think that's the funnest thing, that you can just put horizontal strokes making a gradient, and suddenly it starts looking a little bit like water. You still kind of have to use your imagination at the moment. Okay, it's more sunlit right here. I'm going to put brighter water coming up from the shadow. So wherever I have my darker horizontal areas, that's where I'm going to throw in some brighter orange. That's my sunlit underwater. I'm not making it too extremely bright. Shallower I get, the brighter I'll make it. And then, you know, I really want it to look like there's some overhang of vegetation in there. So I'm going to make sure that I cut off the brightness before I get to that far edge. I want it to really get dark as it meanders under those overhanging trees that are not yet painted. There we go. Just putting little bits of light coming through. Okay, and then I'm going to go and put my, I like that effect that's there. I like the way that came out. So I'm going to continue with this technique. I'm going to put my gray down first and then build a brown brightening gradient that comes closer to me, blends down. So from the gray to that light brown. I ran out of brown.
Joe, this just blows my mind when you paint the reflection on water before you paint whatever it is it's reflecting.
That's funny. Yeah, I guess that is unconventional, but it's so, I'm relying on what is common sight in order to make that gray. Reflection is so often gray that I just know from repeated experience that if I make a gray, it'll resemble reflection. If I made it some really wild, unusual color, then the painting might need a lot more content. You might need to see, like, okay, I need to see what you can crop out an unfamiliar picture and not know what you're looking at. So I rely on familiarity, is what I'm saying, to make that work for me.
So are you saying that the reflection on the water is almost always a gray?
Well, just very commonly, if you're looking at the blues and greens of an environment reflecting on brown water, that combination of colors, what's being reflected plus the color of the water, when you combine those colors of light, you get something very grayish. Not, who's to say what's a true gray? It's grays are always going to take on some hue in comparison with the things they're against, but just something that's very gray, very grayish. There we go. I really took time to cut around that arm. How about that? Okay, now I'm going to go in here and start putting my brown like this. Black and orange are going to give me a brown. And let's just start putting that dark, muddy water going up in there. I'm going to need more orange. This is my mud. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow in it so that it's got that peanut butter color to it. I have a really funny home video of my oldest son eating dirt. And we didn't realize it until years after. We're looking back at videos. And it's a video of my daughter doing a funny little song and dance. We're having a good time watching her do her thing. They're both like little, not older than 5 or something. She's doing this performance. In the background is my son, who is now going on 18. He's just scooping up dirt out of a potted plant, just scooping it and eating and scooping and eating. He just keeps doing it. It's hilarious. Like, well, that's interesting. Okay.
What'd your son think about it?
Oh, he just laughs about it. He doesn't remember doing it. He was too little. So, yeah, he's a good sport. He's a good sport about being embarrassed by his mom and dad. Okay. Horizontal strokes is what I need, and trying to do that. So I have to pick my battles here. I'm trying to cut in the arm while I'm doing this, but that's really not a good idea because I painted that arm fast the first time. I can paint it fast the second time. Better just to get good looking wave strokes. I just wanted to see where I was going to put it, so now I'm coming in here and doing my background and losing my edges. When I'm working on a larger mural, there less is lost in overlapping edges because the whole picture is bigger. So this is a strategy I use frequently: a rough foreground so that I don't waste time painting background that I don't need, but I don't waste time painting a foreground in detail because I know I'm going to do that to it. And then the final step on a big picture is coming back and redoing the edges, repairing edges. So I repair the edges of that body right there, which is a much easier task at that point, since it's already laid out for me and I painted it once, So redoing the edges is not such a complicated thing. Okay, here's more mud color right here, orange. Let's put some bright sunlit glow in there with some white to really illuminate it. Like this. Let's get more yellow. Like that. Okay, and then some black to get a muddy color. I'm just trying to continue my colors that I've already got here. I think I need more yellow. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so all these horizontal strokes combined with this gradient pattern will give me the feel, of an underwater surface coming closer and closer, shallower and shallower. And I don't need accurate details. I just need this pattern of gradient, so I'm going to take this color wherever I see these darker areas that look like the faces of waves. I put that underwater color. Keep my shapes very horizontal. That's an important piece of the puzzle here. I'm going to get some yellow, put some over here to match it. Looks like my left side is more gray. Just going to try to balance out these colors. Okay, now I'm going to do the shoreline. So now
Okay,
I'm going to put, go ahead.
Tanya thinks that the water looks very glowing. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's it's that increase of saturation as it's getting lighter. It's not just adding white, it's increasing the color as I'm adding the white. And it's just like what I did to the brain. It's the green brain effect. That could be our inside joke, the green brain effect. And then you'll know what I'm talking about when I do it in a YouTube video. Same thing with browns instead of with green, blues, turquoise. Okay, I'm going to do higher contrast here. Brighter sunlit colors, but not as saturated. I'm going to add a lot of white because something that I don't know why it happens is the saturated colors under the water. All I know is that, like when you clear coat something and you get all of that dark saturated color, it has a way of perhaps removing some of the spectrum. I don't know, you're on your own figuring out why that happens, but I can simulate the effect by putting darker shadows, whiter highlights, and then I have dry ground next to my wet ground because the dry ground has the higher contrast but lower saturation than the underwater.
So this is a pile of rocks you're painting for this little guy to stand on.
Yeah, because he's throwing rocks,
Okay.
so he's picking up rock. So I'm generally putting a darker edge wherever I see what looks like a bump. I'm just grabbing a little dark color and putting it toward the right side of any little spot. It's there. There we go. I think it needs to look like little tiny pebbles too. So I'm going to shrink my shapes a little bit. I want just enough color difference. If I go too extreme, then they might look unrelated. I want this to look like the less saturated and lighter version of what's under that water. So I'm going to put more little white dots looking for my spots that are already light and just doing smaller white shapes so I can make some smaller rocks.
So Tanya is trying to summarize our student mantra going on here. And she says, so yellow saturated is equal to transparent and purple gray is equal to reflecting.
Yes, purple gray is, but think of it as shifting something toward. With the purple gray and the reflecting, just adding a little purple to anything you want to look like reflection. Just increase that gray purple in the mix. And it works like magic. I mean, it's a cool thing. With the light shining through something, think of it as moving toward yellow, not adding yellow. So there are times when, if I did it on this, if I did it on a purple, for example, a purple, I don't just add yellow to that. I don't necessarily just add yellow, but just shift the color toward yellow if I think about the order of colors on the rainbow.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's how you get that translucent glow. And yes, she has it right on the increased saturation.
And Tanya said, yes, that's what I meant. So she gets it. Yeah.
Okay, you get it. You got it. Nice. Okay, I'm going to put more of my higher contrast texture. I've got black, I've got orange in here. I'm just putting in lots of little brush strokes. I want shadows. And I'm going to put these going across here like this. How are we doing on time, Mavis?
I just looked at the clock. It's 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Man, that time flew by. That time just went by so quick. We'll go for a couple more minutes. We'll get some of this, but we're gonna finish this one on Monday. We got a couple days set aside to do this one. Okay. Small and bright highlights so that I get high contrast. Under the water, we have lower contrast, but saturated color. That's how we get that underwater look. So here on the dry ground, I'll get that effect by increasing the difference between the two. My dry ground will have higher contrast, but less intense color. And that's how I'll attempt to make it look like dry ground as opposed to the underwater parts. That's why I make my shoreline right there. If you can get the look of something without details, then it really makes those details count when you do put them in. You know, this is a good discipline, is to try to get the look without details first, because then the payoff is so great.
And then how do you get that look? That eludes me.
Well, the look, that's all the different patterns I'm talking about are color and gradient and edge patterns. None of them are detail patterns. And so I'm just saying, this painting I'm executing, I'm focusing on the larger patterns as opposed to starting right in on little details. I mean, I did the ear and I did that, but you know, trying for the most part to stick with the, you know, these are very loose brush strokes. You can't really see good edges on the body, but if the colors and the gradients are communicating what I'm trying to communicate, then this is a success, because that means it can only get better when I add the details. Following the same patterns with the details, that is.
Right.
You know, so just relying on, I think I've seen a lot of paintings that have amazing detail, but kind of flat color. You know,
I've painted some of those.
Well, I have too. I have too, for sure. So I could better say that it's common to have a painting that's like that. Okay, now I'm going to go more saturated because I want a little underwater area. This child is on like a what do you call it? A little part of the stream that it really zigzags right here. So there's just a bank that kind of goes out like this, because I want to put a reflection down there.
Like a little peninsula?
Yeah, just a little tiny piece of dry ground, enough to get out there and throw a rock into the water. Like this. So here's my saturated colors. You can see I'm going real heavy. I'm going to put yellow, not just anywhere, but where I already have my brighter colors, because that'll create shallower spots in the stream where I have the more saturated color emerging. See, we do that. And I don't want it to be completely saturated. You know, I want this to have some amount of gray color to it. So I won't leave it quite that intense. That's pretty intense, but let's add white. Let's put a little bit of white, not as much as this, but enough. See, now I'm putting the white where I already have color. This is a strategy that gives me the glow that I'm looking for, is keeping the white where I have color. You know, it's kind of like it can accept white. If it has color, it can accept the white and capture the effect I'm looking for of that bright sunlit underwater. I'm just zigzagging to maybe make an impression of some squiggly sunlight under the water. Okay, the water gets shallower and shallower here, and right there it hits dry ground. Okay, like this. I'm going to take these colors, borrow these, and put them up here like this. The underwater passes around the light. You know, it's so affected by the light that's over here gets shifted over. It all gets spread out. You know, kind of like when you, it's, what's the right word? Diffused. It's diffused. That's what I'm looking for. Spread out, in other words. Yeah, scattered. That's another. So it gets way scattered under the water. So when you have bright light over here, it's going to make this area brighter because it gets so extremely scattered under the water. So that's why we can have a very sudden line of value difference at the water's edge, because the lighting scheme under the water is different than the lighting that's above the water. There we go. I'm not sure if I'm right on the money with these colors, but they're starting to give the impression that I want here. Starting to get it. I don't know if it's all the way there, but I'm just gradually looking for spots that look, there's a balance of how saturated, how light, and so trying to get it there. That looks pretty balanced. I like that balance. I was gradually using the white and spreading out the colors, putting the less intense where the more intense is. Now I feel like it's reached a believable balance. So if I want to take the picture there, this is when I can start investing in some details, because I've got the colors established that will make my details look nice, Okay, let's put some, this is my dry shoreline again. Let's put some brown in here, dark shadows on the right sides of any rocks that are sticking up. Just go to wherever I have bright spots, I can just put a dark shadow. I'm going to get some yellow and white. This mix has a lot more black in it. That's why this is going to be less intense when I put the bright white highlights, because I started with a heavier amount of black to make this resemble the dry ground, little tops of rocks coming out close to the water. And then the saturation level suddenly jumps up. It gets real intense orange when it goes under the water. Right there. I kind of like the the roughness of this, but I want to see the boy have a little bit better edges than that, though. There we go. We got a dry spot in the current. Now this is ready for me to think about, what do I want to put for details? And one of those details is going to be a splash. I'm going to have a big sunlit splash in here. I'm going to have a boosh. Okay, here we go, Tanja. Shifting toward yellow in the bright spot. Okay, from a dark brown water. This is the underwater color, like this. And here's a little bit of black to turn that to brown. Now I'm going to blend these together to get my splash. You got to make the noises. Push, push. Like that. And let me get a little bit of white to make my splashes at the top. This is a big splash going straight up. And it's illuminated up there where the water is more transparent, but not all the way to the top. It gets pretty colorless when it thins out enough, because it is water. So we're going to make sure we put some sunlit white splotches in here. We'll even put them on this far right side, because remember the icicle effect, where we have the highlight on the far opposite side when we want light coming through something. Like that. We'll just do it where the water's thinner. There, see that shift? Brown, shifting yellow as it comes up to be sunlit. So as it gets lighter, it gets more illuminated. Now,
so is the brown where we can see the underwater color then?
Yeah, that's it. It's intended to be the underwater color. So now I'm going to put a couple of waves. I'm going to put a circle around here, because you've seen the slow motion. This is such a great age to live in when you're an artist trying to study shapes of things, because we have slow-mo videos galore on the internet, so you can just watch the shape of a ripple when someone throws a rock. And so I'm going to do the volcano shape here. We're going to put a ring around this. So I'm just mixing a brown underwater color. That's all I'm doing. Go into my palette. We're going to make a brown underwater color similar to what's on there. That's the goal. A brown like this. And I don't like that color. Here is the far side of the donut, tipping up toward me. We won't make it perfect. We'll make it, it's intersecting some other ripples, so we won't make it like a perfect ring. Okay, see that elliptical shape? That's the far side of the circle. Now I'm going to do the front side of the circle down below it, right here. Boosh, just a splash. Right here. Right there, that's the front side floating toward me. So I have this big ring, and I need these to be just dark enough that it looks like that underwater color coming toward me. Now, I need a better, this hard edge is kind of bothering me. So we're going to take that color and adjust it a little bit. This is going to be more like the other underwater colors.
You know what, Joe? Could you zoom in on that fine detail?
Thank you for telling me. Thank you for
your
telling me.
paint
Let's
there.
zoom in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we
So
go.
I'm waiting for you. There's going to be a gray reflection around there someplace, right?
That's it. Yeah. Okay. So, but what's tricky about this is I don't have anything to reflect other than gray, and there's already gray on there. So I'm really just trying to paint the faces of waves tipping toward me, showing me the darker underwater color. So what I still will benefit though from gradients. So if I make a gray, and just for the sake of seeing it better, we might put a slightly lighter or a different shade of gray on there. It's just I have gray everywhere, so it might be hard to see. Let's test it. So here on the top of this one, there's a reflection. See, because this is the ripple going out. So on the top of it, there's a gray reflection. And then on the top of this one, this is the ripple coming toward me. And I'm just trying to make it less than perfect. If it's just undisturbed water, it's just going to be a circle, just a ring, Okay, but the rock can be funny shapes too, so it might send out different amounts. So we have the top of it here, and then as they connect like this, maybe I see some of that. Now I'm going to put just a little bit of extra blending, so it gradually bends the surface toward that, so that it gradually slopes up.
Right.
I want to see this reflection color gradually slope. So the two things, they kind of disconnect from each other. We have a gray ring, and then we have the far side of the ring and the close side when I'm doing that underwater color. So now I'll go like this. I'll put more reflection so that it just enhances what's already there, just to really show. Let's put some horizontal reflections in there. Like this. Just so that we can really see the difference.
Right.
This water splashing. And we might even have a little bit of white water on some of these spots. Maybe this one is still rolling off the white water in the higher spots here and there. Let's put a little bit of little increase of yellow in our brown water. So it does translate to just adding yellow when I'm at a brown, because brown is like a dark orange, and the next color on the rainbow is yellow. So to move toward yellow with the brown is to add yellow. But I just wanted to, for the sake of clarity, just distinguish that the effect is achieved by moving toward rather than just adding that. There we go. Now we got little bits of it. So the ripple's going out, and then the middle's going up like that.
Right. So Tanja has a comment that says, first time I really understood a splash and rings. I'm enlightened.
All right, sweet. I'm happy to hear that. Well, hey, you can always watch the slow-mo videos. That's how I studied it.
And then Mary has a comment, since you're working on this little guy, is that maybe there should be a can of pop on the rocks.
Oh, that is a good idea. Wow, wouldn't that just make this picture cool? I agree. Here's my bright sunlight now. Okay, we're going to do this. So I'm going to use this. If I did too much of the shirt, it's not going to look like a red shirt. But because there's the surroundings of the intense red, see, I can get away with this. So now is when I can really state the light direction, like Tanja was pointing out. See, now I can really get that light coming down there. I
Right.
first build the picture with the soft light, and then maybe got just a little bit on the end of the sleeve there. And then I like to do the intense light last, because I like to kind of build the picture up with all of my softer, more indirect lights. And then when I put that accent on, it's just, it feels good. Okay, we're going to continue this on Monday. Well, we need to get like the dense vegetation, figure out what kind of a world this little, I don't know what to call her. I was going to say this little troublemaker is out. I'm imagining being like myself when I was that age.
He looks like a troublemaker.
Yeah, throwing a rock. I'm sure his parents have said not to.
That is a great splash, I have to say.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.